Hey everybody, Rowan Dredge here, and I am delighted to have this live conversation with Shannah Kennedy. Shannah, how are you this morning?
I'm fabulous. I've had my walk down the beach in the blazing winds this morning.
We are both based in Melbourne, Australia, and for some reason we've had a few incredible spring days, which seems to always happen down here. And then that wind that came through last night was crazy.
Yeah, I know. I promise myself to get out every morning, no matter what the conditions.
You've done very well, which I think is actually a characteristic of, as I prepared for this conversation, one of the things that I noticed about you is that not only are you disciplined, but you're also pretty ambitious and pretty driven in what I would consider to be a healthy way because, and this is where I want to start the story, because you had a career implode, which actually led to the career you're now doing. So from the get-go, before we talk about this fantastic book right here, Plan B, tell us a little bit about your story and the establishment of the work that you're doing now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I watched Wall Street, the movie, and fell in love with Gordon Gekko. I thought, I'm money, greed is good, and it looks so exciting for me, that stock market floor. And so that really appealed to that side of me, that driven side. So, I rang the stockbroking firm every day for 15 days so that the HR lady couldn't stand me, and realized I was going to keep ringing until she gave me a job. So I started in the dungeon, and within a couple of years was on the trading desk. And then I sort of realized it was like the Wolf of Wall Street. This is not where a girl should be sitting. So it wasn't very pleasant. It was quite confronting. And then I changed that industry into sport and fell in love with, high performance athletes. I had a couple of hundred athletes. It was a Jerry Maguire job, so buying and selling and going to sporting events every weekend. And I became my title. I loved that leadership role. I loved, that I had this power. I loved that I was married to it. It was in my veins. I was 7 days a week, no problem. Let's just keep doing this amazing job. I'm in my 20s in helicopters and Olympics. And, it took my health. I just had no regard for being a human being, at all. And, if we want high performance, we have to be able to do it without burnout. We want that longevity.
Yeah, I think this and this part of your story I think is so important because you make a statement in the conversations that I've watched where you said my job became my identity. And the very fact that you can say that means that you're able to kind of look down and go, yep, that's what I became. My question was, how would I know that's happening to me? Because you sound in a way, as you look back on it, you go, how was I like that? Why did I behave like that? That just cost me so much. And yet there's a lot of people doing it. And not only is there a lot of people doing it, there might be people that it's happening to, but we don't even know. So this idea around job becoming identity, being all consumed, allowing those underlying sort of unconscious values to be driving us, what sort of things do leaders need to be looking for if that's happening to them, Shannah?
Well, I always ask the question, who are you without your job, to start with? And most people turn white. So there's your indicator right there.
True.
So, who is Rowan without the business, or who is, Dusty Martin without Richmond Football Club, or who is Peter without Macquarie Bank? It's just such a easy thing to do, isn't it? And when I work with all of my clients, I coach elite athletes, I coach CEOs, lots and lots of leaders. My job really is to develop the person. Let's develop the whole person. And the job is what you do, and you do it really well, but you're a whole person. And if the job broke tomorrow and you were thrown off that ride or something happened, you need to be able to be very confident about who you are, which is like a Roger Federer. He always says it's just tennis. There's so many other parts to Roger Federer, not just tennis. And so I really, really love talking to people about developing themselves around their values and having other areas of their life, humming along, making sure they've got hobbies, making sure they've got friends. I've coached too many people in their 70s who have got their 50 Ferraris parked all over Melbourne, who say, I made a mistake. I'm really great at doing deals. I love doing deals. That's the only way I get a high, is doing a deal now. I don't have friends. I don't have hobbies. I've lost my marriage. My kids don't talk to me. They forgot the whole other part of their life. So I think as a coach, it's really important, and as a speaker, to to make people aware that you're a whole person. And just because you hit a cricket ball better than me or type faster than me or whatever, we're all still human beings. And a job is what we do. It's not who we are. It's
Yeah.
quite a big thing to sit in for a while, I think.
Yeah, I think as you were speaking, I was just thinking about this whole idea of your elite niche as well. Because when we say the word elite, we do think sports, but CEOs and senior people that are overseeing global businesses, hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars, like there's a lot of responsibility that can be incredibly consuming in that. But the subtext of what you're saying is, if we forget about these underlying important things, our relationships, our well-being, our being, our sense of perspective, then at some point in time, that runway comes to an end and we stand there going, what have we got? And that's the kind of work that you're helping people with.
Yeah, it's dangerous. There's a big cliff, right? So the reason I became a coach is because I got very sick myself. I got chronic fatigue. I lost my career. I couldn't go to work. I had a couple of years in bed. And the athletes kept calling me all the time. They were breaking down. I saw what happens when, you get dropped from the team, you get injured, you miss the grand final, whatever it might be. I saw so much destruction. And we're talking 20 years ago, when nobody really cared about life after sport for athletes. It was like churn and burn type mentality. So 20 years ago, I watched people become gamblers, alcoholics, ruin their life. Their life was over. And they're only 29 years old. So I sort of had this
It's not
really
worth it, is it?
close
Yeah.
insight into, if you don't have a life plan running alongside your career plan, and you don't marry the two and work on both at the same time, you end up like the athlete, where we actually have to unpack them and repack a whole person. But we could be, really just tapping into the life plan all the way along.
Yeah.
That's why I
So,
wrote the life plan, and that's why I studied coaching 20 years ago, when no one had heard about coaching and said I was a complete fool.
and you were ahead of the game there, because 20 years ago, the word coach was associated with sports. The word life coach, I would have said, didn't have an embraced understanding of what that could be like. And yet, fast forward 20 years, somebody who hasn't integrated a life plan and a business plan, or a life plan and any other kind of plan, we're left at the edge of the cliff going, where's Shannah when I need her? This is the kind of experience that we're having. So how did you know that the transition across to coach was the right transition? You're clearly ambitious in the sense that you want to be able to make a contribution. And was it in the midst of getting better? Because one of the things I've noticed around your books is that they're in some ways autobiographical, and they're in some ways, plan B included, right? And then in some ways, they're a codified version of what you've done to map your way out of what's next. So I'm really curious, how did you embrace, firstly, getting healthy? Secondly, becoming a coach and actually owning that banner or that shingle over your offering to market?
That's such a great question. I've never heard my books described like that, but you hit the nail on the head, because everything in my book is what I do.
Oh, it's quite obvious to me in my preparation. I'm like, hang on a minute. She did a re-life plan at late 20s, early 30s. Now, just like both of us in our own business models, we're like plan B. I'll say this now, but we can come back to it. I think my belief is plan B is going to give so many people exactly the reprieve that they're looking for. That's what I actually believe about this resource, because they'll say to themselves, okay, so the first idea didn't work. Okay, I know what to do now. Or the first direction's not going the way it needs to be. I know what to do now. I'll come back to that though, but I wanted to put it in early.
Yeah.
So how'd you know? That's the question.
Yeah. When I was sick, I knew I was getting very depressed, because being a high achiever who's on the run, burning the candle at every end, doing triathlons, going to work, I said, I don't need a counselor. I need someone. But I don't need a counselor. And I found a life coach, which I had no idea what they were. And so I worked with a life coach just to set those mini goals, to really be accountable, to really focus back on me and my health and shine a full light back on myself, which was horrific, because I'm like, oh no, but I'm Shannah from Ballet and I'm this. She goes, no, you're not. You're just not that. You've gone from 400 emails a day to 0. You're not that person. So it was such a big transition to go through, and I had someone hold my hand and educate me, that I said instantly, I was like, this is what I could do for my 200 athletes. I don't want to go back to jumping on a plane every weekend and watching sport. How am I going to get married? How am I going to have children? My health is broken. And once you've had chronic fatigue, I actually don't think you ever recover. I talked to Alistair Lynch about this. We get to 90%, but there's 10% of danger waiting for you the minute you slip up. So I knew that it's the gift. It's going to make me very mindful now when I do. I'm not going to be able to race through life and just casually do everything. I'm going to have to be very mindful about what I do. So it turned into the gift. And I really had so much value out of working with someone, not as a counselor, but as a private coach. So I studied coaching, and it was horrific. I can't tell you, it was so bad that I had to tell everyone I'm going to be a life coach. And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, it's like a personal trainer, but for your life. People hated personal trainers in the beginning. Why would you pay for someone to take you for a run? How stupid, go for a run yourself. Not knowing that when you're with a trainer, you're going to get there 10 times faster. You're going to improve yourself. You're going to change your technique. So how do we apply that to our life? And so it was quite a journey. There was no internet and Instagram, and it was actually me knocking on people's doors, having coffee with people, walking up and down the street into shops saying, this is what a life coach does. Would you be interested? It was really hard. It's tough gig. Whereas now, if you become a life coach, the world's your oyster instantly. So it was a hard, tough journey, but I was so passionate about what had happened to athletes. So I would go to a footy club. They'd say, no, go away. We like to churn and burn them. We don't want any hocus pocus in here. But all the players were coming to me separately without telling the coach. So the players wanted it, but the institutions couldn't handle it. Whereas now it's starting to be embraced, which is wonderful.
It's such an important, just as an aside, the work itself is really, really important. I've done a little bit of work with elite athletes, a little bit of work with elite sports in Australia, the organisational side of it. And the shift over the 2 decades to player care and the after career thoughts and processes and planning has actually become significantly more apparent. So I think just in and of itself, that's a really great thing that happens.
It is. I actually had an AFL coach take me out for lunch a couple of years ago and say, I'm really sorry. I couldn't get my head around it, but you were so ahead of the game. You saw it so clearly, so early, and we just weren't ready to receive. And that's why my career turned corporate so quickly, because I was at a footy function talking to a banker, and he said, oh no, we want all of those skills,
That's
all
it.
the life skills, bring them in, go on tour. I'd never been on stage before and instantly booked a national tour, and I teach them life skills. I want to look after my staff. So it transitioned from what my dream was, which was coaching athletes into retirement, to the corporate athlete, which was never on my radar.
Yeah, and that's where the life plan got born. So something interesting about how you get things done. My coach trainer, when I did my executive coach training, she said this. She said, say yes, then figure out how. And that looks a little bit about that. To me, that sounds a bit about your approach. So tell me a bit about that. You basically go, okay, I think that's what needs to happen. And then you sort of ready, fire, aim, and then it works out and you adjust along the way. Is that how things got going?
Yes, I'm probably not a great role model in that way, because I don't think things through to the nth degree. I really am very impulsive and act on my gut. So even, plan B, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning sweating. Oh my gosh, I know exactly what's about to happen in the world. I know all the coaching that's about to come. I've been coaching people through change for 20 years. Got up at 3 in the morning, did the Jerry Maguire thing, just, oh, quickly type out the headings. It just flooded in, sent it to Penguin. My husband's like, oh God, here you go again. You didn't think it through, you didn't even spell check it. You just sent it. And I'm like, I couldn't help it. And then they say, write it, go and write it. It sounds great. And I'm like, oh no, now I have to write it. Okay, I'm going to have to figure that out. And we're in lockdown and I've got 2 teenagers here and a husband and dog here. How can you write a book? It's not even possible. So I just said, oh,
I
okay.
gotcha.
Okay, I'm going to hire an Airbnb. So I went in Elstonwick, like seriously 3 kilometers away from my house. I moved out for a week, and I would get up at 5 a.m. every day and I would just type until my eyes were bleeding. It was full curfew. I couldn't go out or do anything. So I couldn't even go for a walk. So I just typed the whole day for 5 days until it was done. And then I came home and then I could refine it and sit with it. But that's just how I do it. It's just let's do it. If I allow myself to think about it, I might talk myself out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple of different directions I want to go with this, but the one is, tell me a bit more about the skill, because you've clearly developed a skill that has enough internal assurance that you should at least give this a go. And that was the same reason you gave coaching a go with 20 years ago with elite athletes. It's the same reason you got up and typed out some headings that became a book. What can you tell us about that sense of intuition, that sense of internal confidence, that sense of, I've got to get this out and at least see if it works? What can you tell us about that? Because I think that's a real superpower.
Yeah, I think it's because I do everything that I'm typing about or coaching people on. I'm not ever asking someone to do anything I haven't done myself. We think grieving is for funerals, but it's not. I've coached people through grief for 20 years on, oh, my best friend's not talking to me, or I lost my job, or my mum died, or whatever it might be. Grief is not just for the day of the funeral. We're now grieving that we can't sit in a coffee shop, or there's no water cooler to talk at work, or I can't see my mum in the hospital, or I can't even have people here for a coffee or for drinks. That's grief. And the last few months when I've been explaining that to people, it's like relief, because people think there's something wrong with me. So I'm only writing about the real life experiences that I've had and I've researched and I've talked about and been coached on myself. So I think because I feel them, I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to sit in your feelings and deal with emotions. And I know what it's like to change your story, because it's what I do every day. Because every day I have grief. I never wake up feeling good, ever. Chronic fatigue does not work like that. You never wake up and say, let's go for a walk. I don't feel great until after the walk. So every day I have to have these systems in place that support me to be the best version of myself, which is always changing, and we're always chasing that better version of ourselves. So there's always a job to do. And if we just can live by our values, we can never go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so curious just to hear you talk about that. And again, I think the alignment, and this is something that I'd point out to our listeners, is what we're experiencing here with you, Shannah, is a real congruence. Even facing a challenge of chronic fatigue, even acknowledging that it still affects your world, you're still functioning as a congruent contributor to the society and to the work and to the passions that you've got. So I think that has energy in and of its own. When you actually get up and you go, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do today because they are who I am. And that's a really significant part. The first question I wrote down was, apart from the 4 stages in Plan B, and again, the relevance of this idea is just so significant because everybody has needed a Plan B. It is a global problem to solve right now. And even, we're saying, I never would have predicted even a year ago that we'd still be having the kind of conversations we're having around post this and mid that and coming out of and work from anywheres. I would have predicted that a year later there'd be a different kind of rhythm going on. It feels like Plan B is the kind of frame of reference that we all need to be embracing. But you've got your 4 steps, which I'd love you to articulate. But the piece around grief, which you touched on, I think is so significant. Ronald Heifetz talks about grieving our losses. And it's a very human thing to do, but a very vulnerable thing to do. Why is it so important to be embracing the grief, grieving our losses, and acknowledging that at the start of a Plan B journey?
It's so important to feel, because when we acknowledge something and we sit in it, it's been heard and it can leave our body. Okay, we've said we're sad, we're angry, we're frustrated, we're this, we're that. That's all parts of grief.
Mm.
And when you acknowledge it, it can go. When we don't and we distract ourselves the whole time, I'll have more coffee, more wine, I'll go more online shopping. I'm just going to frenzy myself, and we don't sit still and we keep stirring the pot. There's no clarity then. Everything is fuzzy in our head. We actually can't move forward until we've really just stopped and acknowledged what's happened. You have chronic fatigue. If you do not move your body, you will not be able to show up for your family, because you just can't. So, this sticky note here that's been here for 20 years, I've got here, Health, Family and Achievement, which is in my books, about own your values. And that's the boss. That's my code of conduct. So it doesn't matter what job I do or who I'm coaching or if I'm writing a book, that's just what I'm doing. But the real boss is, what do I need to do to honor myself? And when we have grief, I can't go to the coffee shop, I can't see my mum, straight away, what am I doing for my values today? You've always got control. You can always be tweaking what you're doing for your own set of values. And if we don't acknowledge those things and we don't allow ourselves to say, I'm feeling really flat today, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm just grieving today, because I really want to have people over for Father's Day or whatever, and that's not going to happen. Yeah. Okay, well, you're allowed to be flat about that. But if you just completely disregard it and just try and distract yourself, you can't actually move forward and create a plan B. You're just angry. You're sitting in it for too long. Yeah. So it's a pretty important part that no one ever talks about.
And that's why it was like I said, it was the first question I wrote down, because it was the one that piqued my interest the most. And just yesterday, I was debriefing with a chief executive, and we're a similar age, we're a similar style of person. He's running a significant organization here in Australia. It's a distributed team. They've got a retail aspect to it as well. So he's got his own set of challenges right now. And he goes, you know what, Ro? Largely I'm doing okay, but at least one day a week in the last month, I've just felt out of it, and I've needed to go and do this, or I've needed to go and do that. And what I'm hearing in what you're saying is that is in part unacknowledged grief. And if we're able to name what it is, to name the disappointment, it might be a first world problem. I'm sure there are other issues going on, but still, nonetheless, I've got to turn up for my family today, my clients today, my kids today. How do I lead myself so I'm being even healthier? And I just thought this was a significant enough idea to actually stay on, because my assumption is, and I'd be interested in your thoughts, when you talk to clients about this, athletes, chief executives, organizations, what happens to them when you give them permission to acknowledge the grief at the start and then show them how?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it's not something you would normally do. Yesterday I did a talk. They said we might get 50 people. There was 650 people on the Zoom. It is outstanding. And I said, let's just do a quick thing in the chat about how people are feeling: flat, exhausted, can't be bothered. We're such different people, and we get a bit of the can't be bothered, and we think, oh my gosh, have I lost my motivation? Oh, I'm not going to be that great person. Oh, there's a wave of grief that's just come in, and the chat goes bananas. It's like, oh, I feel so good. I can put a label on it. Like, when you have the can't be bothered, which is not your normal self, and realizing that all we do at the moment is output. There's no input. We have no joy. There is no water cooler talk. There is no people connection. There's no going to the gym. There's no seeing our family, no seeing our friends, no celebrating anything. We have no energy going in. It is complete output at the moment. And so people say, That's why I'm feeling flat. Yes, the energy tank is low and I'm grieving. Some of the basic things in life, the smallest things in life, I'm grieving that we just can't meet at the park and have a picnic even. So when they can acknowledge that, it gives them permission then to say, I'm going to be gentle with myself. I'm going to be kind. And then how do we get out of that? I always say to people, change your state, change your story, change your life, move your body. Just move, take a breath. And they say, I haven't taken a breath for a year. Like they've just hasn't breathed. So teaching people to breathe again, change your state, just moving, moving your body, go for a walk around the block, change the story, what you're telling your brain. Okay, today's flat, I'm grieving. That's okay. Go and just put some music on, and within an hour, bang, you're out of it. But you need a little roadmap in the mind of what to do. And for 20 years, I've coached people through sticky notes. What is the instruction for your brain, when you feel like this? And mine says change state, change story, change life. So I know, I'm stuck. Go and move. Just stretch your body. Just lie on the floor. Just get out of that chair.
Yeah. Yeah, look, there's a lot of alignment in what you're saying and the work that I do as well. Like we talk about the power of assigned meaning. What happened? What did I make it mean? Was it resourceful or unresourceful? So it's just sort of that coaching frame, which becomes really, really important. So take us through the 4 steps of plan B. Again, I think, I'll go as far to say, I think people are going to be relieved that you wrote this, because now I know what to do, because the plans I had 18 months ago aren't working. And what are the 4 steps and how can people apply them?
Yeah, well, I wrote it to be a handbook for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter what stage you're in, what's happened in your life, from the 16-year-old that had the first love breakup to, I've got young people emailing me saying this has changed my life, right through to someone in their 60s as things are happening to them with their businesses. It is actually just the human roadmap through change. So I broke it into 4 very bullet pointy, because no one wants to read a whole book on grief. Boring. Let's just do it in bullet point. Let's just spell it out for you and tell you how to do it. So I really decided that, first of all, stage 1, we just need to stop. You had the breakup, the job loss, the whatever, just stop. Just take a breath. Give people permission just to stop running. Stop looking for the solution straight away. Just take a breath. When your kid falls off the bike, first thing you say is take a breath. It's the first thing, instant, immediate survival thing that we tell people to do. So I said, let's just start there. Okay, you and I last year, we're used to being in offices and teaching. It all just got canned instantly. Oh, there goes my career right there.
Well, now we're virtual experts, ladies and gentlemen, on television.
So instantly, we just had to stop and take a breath and say, what just happened? And acknowledge that all of those conferences were cancelled, all of our bookings were cancelled. So the first stage is stop and breathe, acknowledge your feelings. I'm gutted. I was looking forward to that wonderful flight to Greece and this happening and whatever. And then we need to embrace the grief. We need to just sit in it for a minute and then choose our narrative on how to move forward. And so you might be in that section of the book for a month. Or if it's a big loss, I've got stories of my clients in there. It might take them 6 months to be in that section. And then we need to heal. It's like you've ripped the tomato plant out of the ground. You need the soil to rest for a minute. So the whole second part of the book is about self-care, which is what we've been teaching the whole time, which is what I had to embrace with chronic fatigue, is you need to now understand what health means. It's not, do I feel great? It's mental health, it's physical health, it's emotional health, and it's spiritual health. There's 4 buckets we need to fill up every day. So what are you consciously doing? So it's giving you tools and tips about sinking into self-care, about refueling your body before you do a plan B, and being maybe a little bit open to positivity again, maybe opening that door. Maybe it was a gift, which I say 90% of the time with my clients, it was a gift. It takes us a while to get there. And then saying to yourself, that's what happens, that's in the past now. I've got this. Let's move forward. Let's not use that as a crutch anymore. And
Mm.
then we move into the big pivot, that reset and plan B, and we want to rebuild the foundation. So bringing people right back into their values, because I think it's the most important thing we could teach every human on the planet. Know your own values, and you have a boss for life. You have a code of conduct for life. You make decisions by it for life. You know who you are without your job. You know what your values are, and you've got things to do for them. So bringing people right back to the foundation, and then let's plant some new seeds. Let's get excited. Some
Mm.
fresh goals. Let's challenge our comfort zone. Let's really be clear on our boundaries, and let's create that new roadmap moving forward with a freshness about us. And it doesn't have to be big. I say at the moment, only plan spring, only do 12 weeks. That's it. And then only plan today. Only today. Don't think about now till Christmas, because you'll freak
Mm.
yourself out. Like,
Yeah.
let's just live day by day in this lockdown. And then, choose a cheer squad. Choose the right people around you that are not the people that just ring up and complain the whole time, but find a few of those positive people, and let's make the most of COVID. Let's come out of this being proud of ourselves. Let's make it work for us instead of against us. And then I always do vision boards. So I've got vision board kits being printed at the moment for Christmas. And I love when you see a visual of there is going to be life after COVID. The rest of the world's traveling around going on holidays. My clients in Paris are on Mykonos having a great time. We're just a
Yeah.
bit behind them. But there will be life again. So are you prepared for it? Use this time to really plan past COVID, I think is really important. Maybe it's another year away, whatever it is, but certainly in 5 years, we're going to be out there. And then I think the most important chapter, like the first one for me, no one talks about celebrating. And I don't know why we do that. We don't allow people to celebrate, or we don't go with them. It's called the awakening. Maybe plan B is better. Maybe, we've got access to the globe now that we never had before because we had to embrace technology. Maybe it's even better. Maybe we need to conquer our limiting beliefs and embrace joy and get creative, which is what you're doing all the time at the moment, is being really creative with how we approach our clients and our businesses. So I think we reclaim our personal power in this section, and we celebrate all of the small wins, but we also then want to allow people to be the light for others. Like, show people that we can do it, that we can make the most of this. And so I love that last section about celebration and joy, because we need to find those happy habits, the joy on the life plan, that while we're striving for our career and kicking goals and being achievement junkies and amazing things, we need fulfillment. If we don't have fulfillment and you're in the achievement junkie, the minute you stop, your life is hollow.
Mm.
So we want to fill the fulfillment bucket along the way. So it sort of teaches you about that.
Yeah, there's a weight to what you're sharing that I don't want to miss. And I'm hearing this. It's almost like the price of entry to plan B is being honest about what we've got to grieve, because they could be little things, big things. They could be first world problems. They could be issues around ourselves, our significant relationships with our partner, kids. We've both got kids. Mine are a little younger, and they're in primary school, and they're grieving as well, and letting them do that. So what I'm hearing is plan B is so much recognizing that the door I walk through is just the vulnerability of my current reality. But what I'm actually heading towards is something pretty special around joy, celebration, contribution, and almost the anticipation of a life that I don't know yet, but I get to create. And that's a weighty part of real life that I don't hear enough people talk about. Am I hearing you right on that depth? And what comment would you make?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we've got to get into the driver's seat. Don't be the passenger. And, everyone comes to me with, oh, I need to fix that or do that, or I want to transform, or they're very successful people. But I'm like, you're not in the driver's seat. We can be the creator here. How do you want to feel? I don't want to feel tired. I hate feeling tired. I want to feel light and joyous and vibrant. So I've got sticky notes here saying light, joyous, vibrant to train my brain all the time. We really can take the reins if we want to, and it's very exciting. But this book shows you the step by step, go at your own pace. So you might not need to grieve, but you might pick the book up because you just want to rebuild everything and plant new seeds and learn the celebration part. Or you might not know about self-care, so you don't even need part one. But I think everyone needs to be educated on part one because we're always thrown a little curveball. There's always a lemon around that we could turn into lemonade, So
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
just think that this is a bullet point summary of what every human being experiences. Doesn't matter who you are, stay-at-home mum, a factory worker, a CEO, an elite athlete. It doesn't matter, male, female, it doesn't matter what you are. This is the human roadmap of what you go through to get from A to B and feel how you want to feel.
Yeah, it feels also a little bit like a smorgasbord. Like what you were just describing is, if I don't need that bit, I can actually reach over and grab this piece and embrace it as well. So
Yeah.
practically speaking, you talk about controlling the controllables. Somebody that's being and doing plan B, what are you noticing? What are they doing? Is there a rhythm around? Are there friends of mine, Darren and Ali Hill, say it rhythms and rituals, and I love it. Are there rhythms and rituals around daily, weekly, monthly? Are there things that you're noticing that are really working for people that are making this part of their life? What are they doing?
Absolutely. And our habits make us who we are, right? So I ask
Exactly.
people to constantly tweak their habits and check in on them. Does it really work for you scrolling Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok in bed? Does it really work for you? Honestly, no. Okay, so how can we change it? So I just talk about own the bookends of the day, how you start and finish. Just own them like you're an elite athlete, like you are protecting the asset, your energy, your mindset, for you to even be able to cope with all the breaking news and stuff that's thrown at you in the day. Set yourself up right and finish it properly. So enter the track correctly. We've just watched the Olympics, we've got the Paralympians. No one just gets out of the car and starts running, which is what people are doing. They open their eyes and they set off a stress response by touching their phone. So I don't even look at my phone. I don't even want to look at any of those things until after my breakfast. Just protecting that time, that energy, and then how you finish the day. So we always say start the day with the 4 M's. Make your bed, move your body, mindfully breathe, and put some music on, like just give yourself a bit of joy at the moment. And how you finish the day is just as important. Writing some gratitude. For me, I have to stretch. I have to lie with my legs up the wall while I watch TV and invert. Otherwise, I have restless legs all night with chronic fatigue. So it's all part of, you're not allowed to sit on the couch until you put your legs up the wall. Otherwise, you're not going to sleep all night. So it's just about, if we could just treat ourselves like an elite athlete. I'm just a wife and a mum, but using your mindset to help you navigate choppy waters at the moment is really important, by looking at yourself like, what could I do that I can control? And where my focus goes, my energy flows. My favorite saying in the world
Yep.
is, if I'm just going to focus on the doom and gloom outside that window, well, it's not going to be a great day. And sometimes the grief will come in and, yep, we've got to acknowledge it and let it go again. And you have another 5 great days. But this is about really trying to master the computer in our brain and setting up the rhythm and the rituals and the happy habits that work for you. That's all you can control at the moment. So make that your job. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So thank you. So let's flip that and talk to the person who's gone, I tried plan B and C and D and E and F and D. I talk to the person who's listening to us and saying, that's what I want to do, but I just find myself, I'm tripping myself up. I'm getting in my own way, or there are things that are making it difficult. Like what are the kind of things somebody should be looking for that are the challenges? The context of that question is, when I work with leaders and organizations, I always ask them the question, if this went terribly wrong, what would happen? And then we build strategies around around staying on track. And you're a big believer in the restart, reboot, refuel, stay on track, get back on track. So if that's me, if I want plan B, but I'm off track, what do I do?
Well, if I was you, I'd get a coach to make sure.
Yeah. Perfect answer for people like you and I, isn't it? Yes.
Well, and this is interesting. I got a coach last year. The coach
Yeah.
needs a coach too, right? So we can't coach ourselves. Tony Robbins has a coach. Now, why would he need a coach? Everybody needs, at a time where you feel I could be a bit vulnerable, I want someone to hold my hand. I had a coach call me yesterday who wants me to coach her because she wants to make a really big decision.
Mm.
And she's smart, she's intelligent, she's got all the tools, but we catastrophize. We dramatize things for ourselves. And when someone who's not emotionally connected can come in and just say, oh, well, why don't we just see it clearly like this? You get to move.
Yeah.
So it's about having a coach. It's about saying, okay, if I could fit everything on one yellow sticky note, what would it look like? What is essential? What is non-negotiable? And I think when we can just clarify and just get it down onto pretty small pieces of paper, the brain then says, oh, okay, she's taken out all of that, all of the catastrophe. We're just honing in on what's the most important thing at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing, and I think the post-it note metaphor is perfect because it's small enough to be doable and not big enough to become an excuse. In that sense, that's it. And isn't it amazing? Because I've done my preparation for this conversation on post-it notes as well. Because for me,
like you've got the map, right? You got the map of the world, and you're going, I want to go here, 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 and here. It's like, well, let's just bring it down to the first week and just you're driving from A to B,
Yeah.
and the brain just then gets excited. You've got to get rid of overwhelm and anxiety, and we lose confidence, I think, when we're not gaining. When you feel stuck and you don't feel like you're getting anywhere or you're treading water, I think people lose a lot of confidence. And so to keep our confidence going, and you said to me, you've seemed pretty confident. That's because I only work daily. It's like, what am I doing for these things today? My 3 values every day. And that's it. Because if I feel like I'm making sure that I'm looking after my mental, physical, and emotional health every day consciously, and I'm showing up for my family, trying to be fun, and my achievement today is not, do we sell 1,000 books and do 3 talks? My achievement is, did I do the walk? Did I do the breathing? Did I breathe today properly? Because that's my fuel. Did I take my supplements? That's a bigger achievement because that means I'm not going to burn out.
Yeah.
You and I cannot do talks every single day if we're not refueling properly. So the achievement maybe has to be the refuel, not the talk.
Yeah. I think that's such a powerful reframe around how am I looking after the resource that's doing the delivery? And for somebody that's a self-confessed type A driven person, and yet at the same time, you've got this beautiful tension between the values of health and achievement and chronic fatigue in the middle. So it's almost like you're the perfect case study for someone that looks after themselves and gets things done. So I think it's beautiful. I love the idea of the TED Wish. So it's a year from now, and we're celebrating Plan B. We're celebrating how many people it's impacted. What is it that you most want for this book, and how can people get in touch with you for even more benefit?
My dream is when you write a book, the only thing I do is I put a little yellow sticky on my computer that says "Write with joy." And if you help one person, you've done your job. And when you write to say, I want to sell thousands of books, that's just writing for the wrong reason. So I already feel like it's done its job. But I would love for it to be a resource, like the tool that everybody picked up the minute they just went, that was disappointing, or that didn't work out how I wanted it to, that they didn't have to read a whole book on something, that they could just get the bullet point, what to do next, because this is actually completely in order of the brain of what to do next.
Yeah.
So I'd love it to become a resource book for counselors, divorce lawyers, transition coaches, corporates. I would love it just to be a resource in someone's home so that when they felt that hit, they knew exactly what to pick up. And yeah, people can get in touch with me at shannahkennedy.com. Get yourself a copy of Plan B. Have one in the house for the teenager. We all are going to have disappointments. And it's so comforting to know that you can give yourself permission to grieve.
That's right.
And to understand the cycle. And I wish I'd had this 20 years ago to give people.
Yeah.
Really do. So thank
you. No, well, thank you. And but again, the strength of this is that it's lived experience, and you've been disciplined enough to codify it and then give it as a gift to the world. So thank you for this conversation, and I'm looking forward to this resource helping so many people. Thanks, Shannah.
Thanks for having me today.